Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Welcome back to another edition of Cal's Corner Radio here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Cal Korff and I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is the one and only Rob McConnell. Folks, as I mentioned pretty much at the beginning of every show, because it's true, we try to cover on this show across the board everything from politics to the paranormal. And of course, that's a lot of subjects. So today we're going to talk a little bit about politics, and then we're going to switch to the paranormal. And in this case, it's a paranormal with a little bit of twist. I'll just give you one key word here, Jesus, and we'll come back to that in a little bit. But let's talk about politics first, and let's talk about July 4th, just passed, the anniversary again of the United States being founded as a nation, went to war against Great Britain, won that war. They were the first to beat the British. They were the superpower at that time, and the rest is history. As they say, America is what it is today. Now, the reason that this July 4th is in the news, beyond the normal July 4th stuff being in the news, is because, of course, Donald Trump is president. And the issue this time around was this really about Trump, as in a me moment? It's all about Trump, and he's using this as part of his reelection campaign, propaganda motives perhaps. Or is it that he's just trying to take a time out from politics and just wants to celebrate America because he loves his country? Well, I admit that it concerned me that Trump was going to do this thing that he planned, because he made it very clear when he first became president that he wanted a military parade in the style that totalitarian dictatorships have. Let's be honest. Who doesn't remember or equate Russia's May Day with their look how brave and mighty and powerful we are parades that they always do every year to try to show off again how badass they are? That's the Russian mentality. China used to do it. China does it whenever it feels it needs to. North Korea enjoys doing it, of course. Usually it's a sign of an insecure dictator who likes to fool people, that thinks that these weapons that are in the middle of Red Square or whatever can destroy the world. No, it's going to take a lot more than that. American weapons are far superior anyway. Bottom line is nobody's going to nuke anybody unless they don't want to live themselves, because you can't control where the radioactivity and destruction literally falls out. So Russia has the bigger bombs. Big deal. If they use them, they're toast too. So what's their point? I don't know. You'd have to ask Russia. It's rather interesting that there's only been one or two occasions where nuclear weapons have been used, both during World War II, that is, in time of combat. Since that time, I think there's been over 1,000 nuclear tests, which, of course, is terrible. Many of those were in the atmosphere. Now, getting back to politics, the issue of Trump politicizing the July 4th, I was against him having his military parade because I think the United States is better than that. We don't need to do that as a nation. Plus, it's expensive, and this government under Trump is spending money like a drunk sailor, let's be honest. And that is a violation of what Republicans are supposed to stand for, which they lie and like to say, oh, they like small government and, of course, very little money to run the government. They love cutting social programs, which, of course, do benefit people, some of which are a waste and should be cut. Others are vitally needed, but the Republicans don't understand that. It's one reason why some of those who think that way are called Rethuglicans. It's not mocking them. It's actually a term that fits them. So what did Trump do? He gave a very good speech. How much input he had into the speech doesn't really matter because Obama didn't write all his stuff either. But, of course, the myth is that he did. No, isn't true. But Trump did not politicize it. So there went the wind out of his critics' sails. I asked a lot of my friends, including Trump haters, what they did, to celebrate July 4th. I simply pointed out on Facebook, at least where it concerns me, that I can't recall a single July 4th where I've ever thought about the president. Why would I? I think about the country, think about my own life, another year. It's a marker. I don't think about the president. It's not about that. But anyway, so another one went by, and I really didn't think about Trump one way or another. I didn't even watch the ceremony. I saw some highlights. But overall, July 4th is July 4th. It came and went. So anyway, the bottom line message here is, again, gloom and doom was predicted by the left, Trump haters. Didn't happen. Either Trump changed his mind and decided to disappoint them, or it was never in the cards in the first place and they're wrong. Who knows? Again, it depends on who you ask. Now, other issues on politics. It looks like Joe Biden's campaign is coming back down to earth finally. And all it took really was there's a simple equation with Biden. It's always been true in his political career, and it's called you can actually, if Einstein were alive today, he could actually write an equation that essentially says, take what he says, as in when he opens his mouth, multiply it over time, and you'll see a direct correlation that equals a trajectory that's only going to crash back to earth. It's a disaster. Biden is not only gaffe prone, he's Joe Biden. And he panders too much, and he's trying to be Mr. Centrist. And again, you compromise to the point where it looks like you have no spine at all. So he's crashing back to earth. Mayor Pete, as he is known, the only openly gay candidate for president of the United States currently, that is known, at least the major ones, because there's hundreds of them running on the Democratic ticket. There might be other gay people there. Who cares? Anyway, Mayor Pete is in the top 10. He's now apparently outraising Joe Biden. And this is in part because of what Kamala Harris did, the stunt she pulled at the debate. And we can now say it was a stunt because she is a drama queen. And, of course, she panders even worse than Biden. Remember her so-called historic moment where she was talking about being bussed in as a kid and basically trying to play the race card and the victim card, when here she is living in the Bay Area, which wasn't racially segregated in the 70s. I know that because I live there. I grew up in it, and it wasn't racially segregated. This was not Alabama. It wasn't the Deep South. And Kamala Harris, of all people, is not the poster child for the repression of African Americans. She's not black as it is defined today. As the definition has been hijacked by the left, it's supposed to mean African Americans. Well, she's not. She's half Indian, okay, and she's half Caribbean, Jamaican, actually. So they're not from Africa. Now, somebody has said, well, maybe her ancestors were. Maybe. But, at least half of them were not. So does that mean that if you're 1/64th of Cherokee Indian, that makes you a Native American Indian? I don't know. Ask Elizabeth Warren. She's running for president. If that's the definition of how we're going to slice and dice this and declare, based on how we slice and dice it, what fractions of whole numbers constitute being something, well, then I guess if the story of Adam and Eve is true, Do the math here, folks. We're all Jews. Adam and Eve had to be Jews, right? Who did they talk to? Yahweh, God, the God, right? The God of the Hebrews, the Jews. They didn't talk to Muhammad. They didn't talk to Buddha. They didn't talk to Vishnu or Brahma or any other 550 million whatevers the Hindus believe in. I couldn't get a straight number from any of my Indian friends as far as how many hundreds of millions of gods there supposedly are. But out of however many there may or may not be, they spoke to one guy, the guy the Jews worship, Yahweh, the God of the Hebrews. And if you believe the Torah, the Old Testament, as Christians love to call it, the creator of everything, the Alpha and the Omega, the Father of Jesus Christ, okay? So they spoke to them. That makes them Jews, essentially, because there was no other religion. There was no competitor at that time, not even when Cain slew Abel, supposedly, and things went downhill from there. There were no other religions that started immediately at that time. If you look at the Scripture, and the Scripture is never wrong, right? It is literally the true Word of God, word for word, ad infinitum. It just goes on and on and on. So here you have it. We're all Jews if we apply this criteria. Now, back to Kamala Harris. You know what she did after receiving this stupid, phony sunshine from the left media who want her to win anyway over Biden? Let's be honest, that's really driving a lot of their attacks against Biden, because Biden is playing it safe. And they can't really attack a centrist because there's not a lot of substance there to attack. So instead, they want to falsely portray Kamala Harris as the poster child of she's the new Hillary Clinton. And a lot of Clinton backers immediately jumped to her. It's not a coincidence that after Hillary Clinton imploded, she immediately went back east and was hanging out at Martha's Vineyard, courting those donors. That's not a coincidence. She's part of that machine base of the Democratic machinery, part of the West Coast Willie Brown, let's call it what it is, a political gang, okay? We know they were romantically involved, and this was not coincidentally around the time that her career suddenly took off and advanced. That's the way it went down. You can read what you want or not into it. Doesn't matter. The point is you cannot take out that correlation in the record because it is there down to the dates. Now she's running for president, but what did she do after this phony, self-righteous indignation where she's saying, that child was me? Well, now she says, busing shouldn't be mandatory. It should be voluntary. Well, that was Biden's point. So she's unpandered to the group she's pandered. She's flip-flopped, in other words. But it's okay because she's Kamala Harris. Folks, she's part of what's very wrong with the Democratic Party. I don't think they get her. At least a number of them don't get it. If they did, she wouldn't even be on that stage in the first place. It is a disaster. And I know this. Whoever picks her as a running mate, should they decide that way, they're not going to get my vote. No way. And I think I can lay it out in chapter and verse. Now, speaking of chapter and verse, after this commercial break here, we're going to talk about someone in the UFO field. And I want to make it clear, we're not picking on this individual. What we're going to do is take a look at some postings out there in the public record on the internet, and they are the epitome of what a lot of people believe. We'll be back after this break.
It's hard to listen to the news without realizing we're living in volatile, unprecedented times. Yet never has there been such an opportunity to transform the human condition. As old structures fail, where can we find the guidance to co-create a better way? Find Your Path Home is an ever-evolving, leading-edge information, education, and healing resource center designed to support and guide you on your path to unity and enlightenment. Based on sound principles employed by shamans worldwide, we provide techniques that can support you through the current transitions, offering online shamanic classes, international long-distance shamanic healing sessions, complimentary Mission Evolution radio episodes and Stairway to Heaven TV vignettes, seminars, retreats, and much more. All of this can be found on findyourpathhome.com.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Welcome back to Cal's Corner Radio here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Cal Korff, and I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Now, to wrap up politics, as I've said many times, and this has been my view for years, dating back to late last century, I do not support the Democratic National Party. I do not support the Republicans. I believe that the Democratic Party has largely left its political base. The greatest legacy of Barack Obama's presidency is the fact that Donald Trump is president. If Obama and company had done such a great job and Hillary Clinton really walked on water and all that other stuff, she'd be in the White House instead of winning the most votes, only to end up the biggest loser in all American history. So you have a polarized country, and what is really pathetic in the United States is not only everything seems to be politicized and polarized, but it has gone from being a sickness and a phenomenon that has been confined in the past, at least in my short life. I'm talking about especially last century, from the 70s up to the millennium, around the year 2000. Then it really went downhill and got even worse. Then the war on terrorism was another polarizing subject. But in the fringe areas, we're talking about UFOs, ufology, the so-called scientific study of UFO reports, certainly the so-called paranormal itself. Polarization is the rule here. If you don't believe a certain case is real, the other side, the believers, for which the subject itself is often a religion, they just won't call it that, they just won't admit that, but they have the fanaticism and the extremism. And a lot of them are even fueled by outright hatred. And that may sound extreme in itself to make that claim, but I think I can support it. Again, I remind everybody that, from my own firsthand experience when the book The Making of Bigfoot was being done in early 2000, George Green, he was one of the most fanatic Bigfoot researchers from Canada. You can look on the internet. There's a lot of threats there because he was upset that the man who wore the Bigfoot suit had been found, Bob Hieronymus, was put back in the suit. Another copy of the Patterson Bigfoot Robert Gimlin hoax Bigfoot costume was made. Hieronymus was put back into the suit. It was recreated. I know I was there, was part of the team that did this. Again, this is matter of public record. They were livid. And it was just bizarre that people were so passionate over such a subject. It's like arguing over unicorns when there's no evidence that they exist. And that is the position that any sane person would take, even if they suspected or wanted to believe or believed that unicorns existed or Bigfoot existed. They have to admit it has not been proven. But no, you'll hear things like, no, it has been proven. You just have a closed mind, or you just don't get it, or maybe you just don't know about all the wonderful hard evidence out there, or there's a cover-up going on, and conventional science is too afraid or too intimidated. Well, it just doesn't work that way, folks. I realize that in the history of science and human evolution of trying to think and advance critical thinking, there have been plenty of times where people with new ideas and the right ideas have been labeled as villains and have been even murdered and, killed, tortured, shunned, banned from society, whatever, treated as witches, tortured. Not good stuff. But we don't live in those times, especially in the United States. Instead, what has happened is America, and I think America leads the charge on this, and unfortunately it's right over the proverbial cliff. It's like we have these, what's the term, social justice warriors, where they use their keyboards, and when they use all caps letters, all of a sudden, the earth is supposed to tremble beneath their typing. It's ridiculous. Now, I admit I use all caps letters too, but as I tell people, I do it for a very different reason. Things like Facebook do not support rich text. So I can't bold or underscore any text. The system won't let me. So if I want to emphasize a point, making it bold, I can't do it. So when I use all caps letters, I'm trying to emphasize a point. And I even do it with friends of mine. I'm not yelling at them. I'm not angry. If I was angry, I'd just tell them. I don't need to, make all cap letters to communicate I'm angry as some sort of symbolic gesture. No. So I want to share with you some very real interactions now that are still ongoing. There's no pattern to them because I've got no nefarious plot in mind, although I might be accused of it. It's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds. And this is a real-time kind of, reporting on a very real interaction that has been going on for the past couple of months here. Basically, as you know, on the internet, anybody can say anything, and people do. And a lot of the stuff out there is just not true, but people say it anyway. And, of course, where it concerns UFOs and conspiracies and things like that, where anybody can speculate anything and suddenly they're a self-proclaimed expert because there are no standards to be an expert in the UFO field. Well, you have a lot of characters out there, and one of the ones that has gotten a fair amount of buzz lately is a character that I've been interacting with, and he calls himself UFO Jesus, okay? And you can find him on Twitter. Just Google it. He also has a YouTube channel. He's out there. UFO Jesus is one word, of course, because got to be high-tech there, Anyway, I started interacting with this guy because, I've heard ever since I was a kid that Jesus was going to come back to Earth. And, being raised in a Christian family that really had Jewish roots but didn't want to talk about that, and actually parts of them my ancestors didn't know. They tried to hide themselves off and pass themselves off as Christians to survive things like the Holocaust. I understand why that happened, especially with both sides of the parents' heritage being from Europe and areas occupied by Russia, Stalin, and Hitler. That is our family heritage. I understand all that. But I thought, this will be interesting. What does this guy think of himself? What are his views, etc.? So I started engaging UFO Jesus on Twitter. And he responded. Jesus responded to me. The first time ever that I can say in writing that Jesus responded to me. So I asked UFO Jesus, I said, why do you call yourself UFO Jesus? I'm just curious. Maybe he's a Hispanic gentleman and his name is Jesus. That's Spanish for Jesus. Maybe it's that simple. He can tell me. Well, he tells me that that was kind of what his friends started calling him, and they thought it was cool, and that he fit the idea of being a UFO Jesus, whatever the idea of that is. So I guess because he says it sounded cool, that's why he stuck to it, and that's why he's known today as UFO Jesus. So that's his story. So I thought, okay, I thanked him for, telling me the truth, apparently. And then things got rather interesting. Now, I will tell you that UFO Jesus, he's part of this UFO disclosure movement. And right there, that's a showstopper for me. Sorry to disappoint you, UFO Jesus. And I hope that you or one of your followers or one of your disciples or whatever you want to call them, your buddies, or the people that you laud and practically worship at their feet, and I'll name them shortly. For those of you who know this show, I think you'll be shocked but not shocked when you hear what I'm about to share with you, who these people are that UFO Jesus lauds. Well, I hope you do hear this, and I hope that you stick to your word, that you're open-minded, and that you like to engage the skeptics, because you went ahead and threatened to go ahead and just cut off all communication with me because you said I was being rude, and I replied and said I didn't know that telling you the truth was being rude. and then you seem to have changed your tune because I remain unblocked. But let's see what happens after this show, because I want this out there, because I believe in transparency and accountability in the UFO field, and this is going to be interesting, especially with your visibility and what's coming on our end. So the first thing, the bone of contention between UFO Jesus and myself is kind of laughable, folks. And feel free, if you hear this broadcast, to ask him about this. He is basically fallen into the trap that Stanton Friedman made up and created, and unfortunately has suffered in his legacy accordingly, because Friedman has passed away. He has fallen into the trap that a lot of UFO young types do, what I call the right-click researchers. They can't even use the word debunker properly. I remind them again for the umpteenth time, you're not speaking proper English. You're speaking a terminology and a vernacular that is unique to the UFO field. Yet another reason why it's not taken seriously, because black means black and white means white. That's why those words exist. Duh, hello. And when you say the word debunker means that you've got a closed mind, well, you need to go back to school and take Basic English 101 again. It doesn't mean that. It never has. It never will. Again, debunk means to take the bunk out of something. Just like decaffeinated coffee means it's got no caffeine in it because it's got the D in front of it. You're removing it. So when you take bunk out of something, you're removing what is BS or nonsense from facts. And separating fact from fiction, which is called debunking, is always a good thing, regardless of what UFO Jesus says. Now, when I say UFO Jesus, it's not him, because he didn't make up this stupidity. He is merely repeating it, blindly repeating it. He's not thinking critically. Anybody who says that a debunker has a closed mind is just blindly aping Stanton Friedman, who couldn't be more wrong on that point. He made up that myth and nonsense, told you up was down, back was forwards, and again it's wrong. And the people who just blindly repeat this have no excuse. It's like, do you have your own independent thought? Do you have your own brain? Well, if you do, please switch it on. Well, I nailed him on this point because it's a valid point. And it went downhill from there. He didn't like it. That's how open-minded the guy is. All right, we'll come back after this commercial break.
How would your life change if you could develop the business and personal skills that you need in order to make more money? Do you want to learn how to achieve your big life goals faster? Then go to findhiddenmoney.com and get the Goal for It online course. The course teaches you how you can set and achieve your biggest goals while completely overcoming the roadblocks to your goals so that you can realize your dreams and imagine more success. Go to findhiddenmoney.com.
Memorable dynamic presentations are a not-so-secret weapon in the business world. Do you have a powerful message that must be shared, but you haven't found a way to deliver that message? Do you want to be known as a top public speaker who gets amazing results? Are you ready to create and deliver your powerful message? Thomas Hides can help you create and deliver your speech to get the results you desire. Visit iconquality.com.
Did you expect your business to flourish, but instead it plateaued or didn't get off the ground yet? Would you like to achieve massive goals and discover new sources of income within your business? When you're ready to experience that type of success with fast results, Cindy Hendricks is the business coach for you. Her work with entrepreneurs and business owners has been life-changing. To get you and your business where you want to be, go to imaginemoresuccess.com.
Has the fear of public speaking stalled your business or personal life? What would you give to develop and maintain supreme confidence? Have an invaluable private program to always perform at your best. Imagine how you would feel. You can have all that and so much more today with Thomas Hyde's life-changing course called Number One Fear Unleashed. Visit numberonefear.com and be liberated from your fear of public speaking.
Welcome back to the third segment here on Cal's Corner Radio, here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Cal Korff, and I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Now, we were talking about a online personality who calls himself UFO Jesus, and I want to emphasize again here that the idea is not to single out him as an individual. Instead, I'm taking his arguments because they are the epitome of what a lot of people say out there, and the genesis of how these opinions of his evolved, since they're not new or original. You can Google them. They go back many, many years, even last century. Disclosure, that so-called movement is not new. It's been around for decades, and it remains decades later imaginary, okay? And we'll come back to that in a moment. But again, the reason we're doing this is to go down the logic here and the claims, since this individual is not the only one to make them. The problem is that a lot of people are making them, and we know why. They're not thinking critically for whatever reason. That's on them. Once again, the word debunker does not mean, it never has, it never will, that someone has a closed mind. And again, this stupidity, and that's exactly what it is. It is propaganda, it is lying, manipulation, and I knew the man who invented it, Stanton Friedman. He said, and this is a quote from him, "Don't confuse me with facts, my mind is already made up." And he would say that's how a debunker was. Really? Not in any credible dictionary. Now, here's another word that once again UFO Jesus just didn't understand until I told him, apparently, and I'm not sure that, like the word debunker, this word as well, he still really genuinely understands, because I still see him going back to the same shtick, which has now been exposed. And whether he disagrees with what I'm saying or not doesn't matter now, folks, because I can back up what I'm saying with any credible dictionary. And as I pointed out to UFO Jesus, the Oxford Committee is the arbiter of the English language, not Stanton Friedman, and they are on my side. So it doesn't matter whether he disagrees with me. He can't deny the facts. He can only remain in denial of them. Now, here's another word that bothered him: hypothesis. Okay? He seems to think, as do other people who blindly, again, repeat the Friedman type stuff. Again, these right-click researchers, as I call this group that are millennials and post-millennials, the young things who don't know anything about UFOs unless it's on the internet, which again is a severe weakness, trust me. Again, the word hypothesis. Well, I pointed out to him, and he didn't like it, that the word hypothesis doesn't mean it's just another guess. No, it doesn't. It actually means a bit more than that. That's the reason it exists, okay? Hypothesis means that you've got, it's basically an educated guess if we use today's slang. In other words, it's not, throw some spaghetti against the wall and see what noodle sticks type approach. You have to have something to go on. So if I have a hypothesis that I will move forward depending on how I move my feet, I'm basing it on something, okay? It's not a blind guess. It's not a theory. It is a type of theory, but it is a theory that has some basis to drive it. It's founded on something. Even if by the time you run it down, it turns out you're wrong and there was nothing to it, at least it was started by something. There was probable cause or reason to believe, whatever you want to call it. That's the key difference. Well, that seemed to be news to him, and I found that just laughable. I'm thinking, well, what are they teaching the kids in these schools nowadays? But then I thought, I'm not really going to let him off the hook by blaming the failure of an education system, because it's so widespread It's really the failure of the individuals, okay? Yes, we are responsible for our own actions. I understand that that's a brand new, frightening concept to some people, especially those who need safe spaces and get offended by things like comedy. Well, tough. That's life. In a genuine democracy and in free speech, you have the right to be offended, and it's okay. And people can offend you. That doesn't mean they have to say things that are trying to hurt you or smear you or whatever with bad motives behind them, but you can agree to disagree. But don't sit there and say out of one side of your mouth how tolerant, patient, and loving you are, while out of the other side you're just saying things that are not true. And when somebody who knows better, through everything from firsthand experience and is armed with real dictionaries and has had this argument before, I got news for UFO Jesus. You're not my first rodeo, okay? I, again, spent time sending him newspaper clippings, which the X-Zone has published in the X-Chronicles newsletter about Stanton Friedman. And it was funny what he said to me. He said, well, I'm not focused in the past. Of course you're not, because if you were, you wouldn't be opening your mouth at all in the present nor the future, because what has happened in the past, the very foundation which you don't understand, it happened before you were even born. No, it's not on Google unless Rob or I decide to put it there, okay? And yes, that day is coming, UFO Jesus. I'm prophesizing ahead of time that it's coming. Well, you can't have it both ways, because the very foundation that makes you believe and deceive people that there's this disclosure coming, or that there is even disclosure imminent, and that it's tied to the behavior of the phenomenon, whatever, and that they just keep showing up until the government's going to come clean about it. Oh my God, talk about a leap of faith. Talk about something that in that case, is that example is not even a hypothesis. It's just a blind theory, one that is not supported by any data. So this is some of the interactions that we had. Now, he was asked recently, okay, who he thought were the leading lights of the UFO field. Now, I'm going to tell you what UFO Jesus's answer was, and he likes to go by, I guess, the initials UJ. So here's what UJ, a.k.a. UFO Jesus, had to say. And this is a quote. I'm reading from it, okay? It says here, in my opinion, this is UFO Jesus' words, George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell are, without question, the most important. I consider them among the most objective in a field in which many researchers contract the UFO disease. Ooh, Freud would have a field day with this one. He would say, young man, this is a case of projection if there ever was one. First of all, UFO Jesus has what is, by his own definition, the UFO disease. He shoots his own arguments in the foot. He can't see the forest from the trees. And if George Knapp is the best shining example of what passes for research in the UFO field, well, then by UFO Jesus's own standards here, we have a problem, because George Knapp promotes things like Skinwalker Ranch. Now, Skinwalker Ranch, and, I have yet to engage UFO Jesus over this subject, and I'm not sure I'm going to waste my time on it, but I'll put this out here for the record on this show at least, and UFO Jesus can either ignore this, he and his friends, his clique, or they can, face the music and address it. Well, Skinwalker Ranch is supposed to be a haunted ranch in Utah that is amazingly was owned by Robert Bigelow. Yeah, the same contractor and donor, billionaire Robert Bigelow, who went ahead and, of course, got roughly $22 million from his buddy Harry Reid over the ATIP scam, and it was a scam, and that will be proven in the near future. I'm just going to say that. And what happened is, at this haunted ranch, and of course, this was part of the bid to get the ATIP project, what senator wouldn't want to spend $22 million of taxpayer money, black budget money without congressional oversight, to have one-stop paranormal shopping, because the paranormal, UFOs, skinwalkers, all this paranormal stuff is appearing at this one location, so nobody has to really travel very far. And again, it's such an efficient use of government research and funds. It's like all the paranormal agree to cooperate and show up and say, hey, let's all hang out at Skinwalker, and they can study us up to you-know-what and spend their money and learn whatever, and, the human race will progress and, be better off, right? No, it was a total scam. Skinwalker Ranch is not haunted by ghosts. There aren't orbs from other planets flying there. Skinwalkers themselves are a myth. And for those who don't know what skinwalkers are, it sounds kind of creepy, but it's really just a bunch of hooey. It's a loose Native American myth that basically says that if you behave a certain way or you're cursed a certain way, you roam the inner dimensions between the physical world and the afterworld, whatever you want to call it, the same vague nebulous area that some people believe Bigfoot and Sasquatch roams, okay? And you're cursed and, you're this hideous thing, you are this witch, you're hunchback and all that. And there's this stupid photo floating around that basically looks like someone got down on their hands and knees, but, did it backwards. And then, of course, they turn the mask around on the front of their head to make it look like they've got their head twisted around like some, incredibly intimidating, scary creature. It's ridiculous. And, of course, this all goes back to the days with Hal Puthoff and NIDS. Skinwalker is a hoax and a fraud. And, of course, there's supposed to be these dire wolves there, and they can't be killed with magnum caliber weapons or ammo. Yeah, well, that's just ridiculous. I'll bet you if one of those animals ever showed up and UFO Jesus, had the right caliber weapon and was a decent shot, he could kill one of those dire wolves, and then he'd advance science because, who doesn't want to kill a paranormal creature for science to study, right? It's all a bunch of hooey. And guess what? History Channel is about to launch the Skinwalker series, brought to you by many of the same clowns who have been involved in past paranormal, questionable programming. When I look at History Channel and the fact that Ancient Aliens is in its 14th season, and they still haven't found an Ancient Alien 1, well, they're never going to find it because the evidence is not there. Von Daniken's work was exposed for what it was a long time ago by people like my colleague Ron Story, back in the 70s, through books like Guardians of the Universe. You can't take that out of the universe. It is historical fact. Now, we'll be back after this commercial break, and we'll finish up with UFO Jesus and other ridiculous claims in the UFO field.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by L.A. Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
Christopher Fulton is a survivor of the national security state. All he wanted to do was preserve history when he acquired a Cartier watch from the estate of President Kennedy's personal secretary. But that simple act set off a terrible chain reaction. He was pursued by the U.S. Justice Department and the FBI, thrust into the middle of the U.S. government's Assassination Records Review Board, even monitored and pursued by the Russian government. All because that Cartier watch was the missing link of evidence, a timepiece worn by JFK that fateful day in Dallas, a link resulting in Christopher being incarcerated and attacked for 9 years because he opened a hidden chapter in history. The intriguing journey outlined fully in Christopher Fulton's memoir, The Inheritance, is available now through TrineDay.com or Amazon.com. The Inheritance, Poisoned Fruit of JFK's Assassination by Christopher and Michelle Fulton is a must-read, an incredible tale of how easily our own government can overrule justice. The Inheritance, Poisoned Fruit of JFK's Assassination.
Welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on Cal's Corner Radio on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. Once again, my name is Cal Korff. I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Now, wrapping this up about the personality UFO Jesus, and again, not to single him out, to pick on him, but to point out comments and talk about openly the exchange we have had publicly. It's out there on Twitter. You can see it yourself. It's more detailed than what I mentioned, but I've encapsulated it very briefly. And since this guy has a bit of a following and all that, and he's out there and he's put himself on the line, as they say, well, I think it's time to basically speak up and say, now, wait a minute, it's really not this simple. In fact, you are outright wrong on some key things here, and nothing you can say or do is going to let you off that hook. So I will say this and basically hold him accountable from the standpoint of pointing out that when you use terms like debunker incorrectly, you need to be held accountable for it. Speak proper English or admit you're using propaganda techniques, the very thing that you criticize the skeptics over because you're blindly aping what Friedman said. You know, again, this happened before he was even born. This is not new. And then, of course, this disclosure thing. He keeps saying disclosure. Disclosure what? It's better to be called disclosure theory. And then once again, I pointed out to him and others, I've talked about it here, that there is no mystery regarding the history of disclosure. It's a myth. We know who made it up. His name is Jamie Shandera. He explained how and why he made it up, and he worked with a guy named Bill Moore. And I know this because I knew Bill Moore. He did publish my first Meyer expose book called The Meyer Incident, the Most Infamous Hoax in Ufology. Yes, long-winded title, just became The Meyer Incident for short. Wrote it in high school. Bill Moore published it. It later became Spaceships of the Pleiades, the Billy Meyer story, when I expanded it and went to Switzerland undercover the first time, blah, blah, blah. This is all stuff, again, that UFO Jesus didn't seem to know. And while that's okay, he's right. He doesn't have to know everything about UFOs. And yes, he doesn't need to know about poor little old me. I really don't care. I'm not going to let him get away with crap when he says this, supposedly as the poster child for what passes today as critical thinking. It's ridiculous. When you can't use the word debunker properly, you don't understand the word hypothesis, and you keep talking about an imaginary disclosure when we know that the disclosure idea and issue is a pure myth along with the aviary, because Shandera admitted that they had established contact with some government sources at various levels, some of whom were military personnel or former military personnel, and to hide their names, he gave them cover names of birds like condor and falcon. Richard Doty was one of those people. So was Bob Collins. Okay? Now, where did he get that idea from? Well, as Bill Moore told me, and again, Shandera admitted in writing, in printed interviews that are really not visible on the internet unless you dig deeply, but they were done before the internet existed in the 70s, back in publications released by Shandera and Moore themselves, published out of Los Angeles. I remember those because I was involved as one of the contributors to them. Again, got you there, UFO Jesus. Again, he got it from the movie The Falcon and the Snowman. Now, you have to smile at that, folks, because what UFO Jesus is saying is that there's this disclosure going on. Yeah, it's basically from Santa Claus. It's from a fictional movie, The Falcon and the Snowman, okay? And no matter what percent of that movie is based on a true story, the fact is, as Shandera said himself, I made up the names of the aviary members. What is not clear about the term, I made it up? You know, I just don't get why anybody, especially a Jesus-type figure, would not understand what's not clear about made it up. So if the UFO disclosure movement is real, and its origins were made up by a guy who liked the movie The Falcon and the Snowman, and Bill Moore liked that movie too, he told me himself, okay? I hadn't even seen the movie, I'd heard of it. That's when Bill Moore told me about it, when Doty sent him out to talk to me about joining the aviary. I refused to do it. I have no idea if the aviary has contacted, UFO Jesus and has asked him to join. But, if George Knapp contacted me and asked me to join TTSA, I'd say, yeah, I'll join, but only after you come clean and be honest and tell people the truth about what's really been going on in some of your past major stories. And then let's end this on another story that, of course, UFO Jesus, and it's another story that, again, has got legs once more. And I find it personally frustrating because how many more times do these things have to be exposed before people say, no, we're not going to fall for it this time, because we remember last time we fell for it, we were fooled, and it got exposed, and we're not going to be that stupid again this time. Well, I have yet to see that level of consciousness occur, because this thing keeps reoccurring over and over like a bad nightmare that just won't end. Billy Meyer comes around, and he's popular every few years. Now you got Bob Lazar again, thanks to people like George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell. And again, these are heroes to UFO Jesus and the people who believe in this mythical disclosure movement that was made up by a guy who liked the movie The Falcon and the Snowman. Again, you couldn't make this up if you tried to in Hollywood, and if you did try to pen such a script, Hollywood would say, get out of here. No one would believe this story. But yes, it is true, folks, and it just confirms the adage that at times the truth is indeed stranger than fiction, especially in ufology. And speaking of ufology, there was yet another bone of contention among UFO Jesus and myself. I pointed out to him that the definition of ufology is the scientific study of UFO reports. It is not UFOs, because they won't cooperate. It doesn't matter if somebody has been, anal probed and claims they have an implant. Until one is proven by science to be, from Zeta Ridiculous, you can't say it is an alien anything, okay? This is yet another problem with these guys. They throw around these words as if they're proven facts when it's just wishful thinking, because it hasn't been proven yet, one way or another. Therefore, you can't do anything with it. So don't call it alien when you haven't proven it's alien. Just say it's purported implant, like you were trying to build a legal case, okay, until it's proven it's purported or alleged. So anyway, getting back to the main point here, you have Bob Lazar. He's back again, thanks again to Corbell and people like George Knapp. Well, I am the only known UFO researcher who unquestionably, irrefutably, you can't take this out of the history record, worked at KMI, Lawrence Livermore Lab, just like, guess who, Bob Lazar did. And I know for a fact from firsthand info that he is not telling the truth when he talks about the reverse engineering of flying saucers being done at Sandia and so on. It just is not true. And later this year, that expose will come out. And what's interesting is for years people said, oh, Korf never worked there. And I deliberately refused to supply any proof that I did, because why should I? It's like questioning that my name is Cal. If you're that stupid, I don't have time for you. And it's not open to discussion. It is a matter of public record that predates the internet that I worked there. I mean, it's just like it's beyond question that I worked at Boeing. It is a fact. It's beyond question I wrote the Roswell UFO crash, What They Don't Want You to Know. You can get it at Amazon. So don't tell me I didn't do it. And I don't have time for people who say I didn't. Why should I? It's as bad as the Obama birthers. They know what they can do with their damn conspiracy lies. So here I am, the only person, and I know that Lazar is not telling the truth. And these same people who attacked me for saying, oh, he never worked there. And then, of course, I deliberately released an article which wasn't on the internet, which proves I did. Plus, Friedman knew I did. We talked when I worked there. Not long after, when I was still working there and also working later, my Roswell book came out. We talked, we remained friendly, even though he was exposed in that book. We didn't part company or friends in this world, enemies, not even close, but we did disagree. He knew I wasn't going to hold back, but he also knew that in my mind I had other things, bigger fish to fry, more important things, different things to do with my life than worry about what I called little gray leprechauns. So what really bothers me about this whole millennial right-click UFO researcher thing, the way this whole TTSA fraud, and it is a fraud, has unwound, we have reached new lows now in the media regarding critical thinking and even basic reporting. And I understand that about half the media field has taken an incredible hit in the loss of jobs. The amount of layoffs that I've seen of people I know, fellow journalists around the world, in the 27 countries that I have had the honor to visit and, also live in, depending on how you define live. That's another ridiculous argument, which is kind of funny. But anyway, again, you have in the U.S. about 90% of the media owned by 6 companies. So how much independence is there? You have fake news. You now have the ability to fake videos. You've got deep fakes. You've got deep state even, whether people want to admit it or not, on both sides of the political spectrum. You've got a complete mess. So, again, I'm pleased to announce and happy to say that Rob and I will do our part very shortly. We've reached a milestone here where the new Annie Jacobson expose will be part of the new show, Ufology or Ufology, and we'll be addressing UFO claims over the past, present, that are being made and tell you whether they're, ufology or ufology and try to stick to it. There'll be other cases where we don't know, and we'll investigate it and share it with you. So stay tuned. More is coming. And if you contact UFO Jesus out there, tell him I said hello. We hopefully will engage again. Thanks for joining me.
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie, natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide. They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Eli Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now to receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.